Yo and hello everybody, Mike here, baseball collector, and man are you in for a treat. I am so excited to do this video. First of all, I am feeling better. Thank you to everybody for the well wishes on getting better. I'm on the tail end of it, but you can still maybe hear it in my voice just a little that I'm still a little bit stuffy, but I'm feeling much better. So thank you everybody. And whew, I'm excited. So the REA auction went off a couple of weeks ago, and I got my items in yesterday, and literally the FedEx lady came to drop them off, and I didn't hear the doorbell ring, and because I was taking a nap because I was sick, and at the last minute I heard the shuffling and I went, oh crap, and I ran. I literally chased the FedEx truck down the street to get the lady, and so I could get these things because I didn't want to wait till the next day and God knows where it would end up, and I just wanted to make sure I got them, so I was really happy. And in the REA auction I won 2 different lots, and today I'm going to be talking about one of them. The one I'm going to talk about in a later video is this right here. Let me show you this. This is a stack of Perez Steel autographs, all autographed, every one of them, and I got 138 of them. So really thrilled to add this. I needed 7 or 8 of them for my collection, but why buy 7 or 8 when you can buy 138? That just seemed to make sense in my weird brain. And so I've got a lot of them that I've given away to some people that I promised to, and so those care packages are going out, and I'll have the others for whatever reason I might need them for, and I'll do another video showing you what I got there. But the real lot that I was so excited to get was a collection of 10 different letters signed by Hall of Fame executives, and one of them I'm not going to show because it's not that big a deal, but 9 of them I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to show it to you in the best way that I can. But I really want you to pay attention, because as I got these and I started reading through the content and reading it, you know, the significance and all the history that was involved there, and did research on this to show you guys and talk to you about who these people were and what they meant to the game of baseball, blown away I was with how just chock full of history and coolness that these items have. And these are all executives from long ago, way before most of us were even alive. And so I think it's important that we respect the history of baseball. I know I do, and I really enjoyed researching this and coming up with different little facts to tell you about the guys and talk to you about these letters, and really hopefully provide some knowledge, and hopefully you'll learn something. So let's just get to it. Let me just show you the first of the 9 letters. I hope you enjoy them. Catch you in a minute. All right, so here we go with the first letter, and it is a letter written by Larry MacPhail to Walter Briggs Jr. on May 29th, 1941. And you can read it there, but it's on very fine paper, like almost like parchment, very delicate paper for sure. And it's more than just a letter, and I'll show you in a second what I mean by that. But let me first tell you a little bit about Larry MacPhail. MacPhail was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1978. He started off as the GM of the Cincinnati Reds in 1933. He moved on to the Dodgers and was their general manager from 1938 to 1942. He, sorry for the rock in there. He resigned in 1942 to take a commission in the Army during World War II. What's notable about that is when Larry MacPhail resigned, Branch Rickey took over for him as general manager, and we all know what happened with the Brooklyn Dodgers franchise from that point forward. Branch Rickey became integral in the integration of baseball, bringing in Jackie Robinson. When Larry MacPhail got done with his tour in World War II, where he became a full colonel, he became the general manager, president, and co-owner of the New York Yankees. Ironically, he was fired after the 1947 World Series because Larry MacPhail was known as a hothead, drinker, carouser, just troublemaker. And so they finally had the last straw with him after the 47 World Series. He was at some after parties after clinching, and apparently he said some things that got him fired. And what's cool about this letter is It's, again, written to Walter Briggs Jr., and who he was the son of the owner, Walter Briggs Sr., of the Detroit Tigers. And you notice the letter says, "I thought you might be interested in my answer to the commissioner's query about the advisability of increased number of night games." And so I'm going to pull the camera back just a second and show you. Notice it's stapled. So behind it is a copy of a letter that he wrote to Kennesaw Mountain Landis. You can see it up at the top there. And it talks about it in great detail over many pages how important he feels that night baseball is going to increase and change the entire dynamics of the major leagues. It is amazing baseball content, amazing history. Now we think of night games as normal. Back then it was a fledgling idea of having night baseball all the time. And so this top paragraph, the change from 7 games to 10 or 14 or any other number, is simply a setup towards baseball every night and only at night. That has been the history of night baseball wherever it has been introduced. Clubs first start playing 1 night a week. Economic pressures was responsible for the increases from 1 night a week to 2, and then to 3, and finally every night. So it says, that's what's funny, does any individual who claims that an increase in the number of night games does not mean that baseball will become strictly a night game is sticking his head in the sand like an ostrich on the theory that anything he refuses to admit or see cannot hurt him. So it's funny and very interesting for sure that unbelievable. The time may come when baseball will sink to the level of professional hockey, wrestling, or other purely commercial exhibitions and played every night. Unbelievable. Just amazing baseball content. So cool. So it's more than just that Larry MacPhail signed this letter, which is neat, but it's got this entire copy of all of this stuff that he had written to the commissioner in terms of his response for night baseball. And that's not a signature, that's actually a copy of his signature on that page. But how cool is that to have all of that in this one document kind of outlining? Unbelievable. So there you go, that's the first letter. Okay, next up is this letter from Ed Barrow. Ed Barrow is a Hall of Fame executive. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1953. This letter was written on May 3rd, 1933. You can see it's on awesome New York Yankee letterhead, written to Joseph Devine, who I believe was a scout. And I'll hold it here and tell you some about him. If you want to read the letter, you can. It's got some good baseball stuff in it, but it's really cool as I'm researching about these guys to learn so much about what they did for the game. So Ed Barrow actually was a manager. He managed the Tigers in 1903, 1904. So that was teams with some guy named Ty Cobb on them. Pretty cool. He also managed the Red Sox in 1918 when they won the World Series, their last World Series until 2004. That's also the year that Babe Ruth was their star pitcher, and he was kind of like, man, I've seen what this guy can do as a hitter. I want to transition him to be an outfielder, because Babe Ruth told him, I either want to pitch or I want to hit. And so he transitioned him to be a hitter, told his manager, or not manager, the owner, do not trade, sell this guy, which he of course did to the Yankees. So what he did was, after the 1920 season, he resigned as manager and became the general manager of the Yankees. Moved over to the Yankees. He served as an executive with them until 1946, both as a general manager for a long time, then as the team president and part owner, and just an amazing guy. Teams that he was affiliated with won 11 World Series championships. Some things that he introduced to the game that we still, consider to be kind of normal. He was the first executive to put numbers on player uniforms. He was the first person to retire a number for Lou Gehrig's number 4. He also was the first executive that allowed fans to keep foul balls that entered into the stands. He was also the first to require the Star-Spangled Banner to be played every game and not just on holidays. So it's really cool when I'm researching on these guys, beyond just, oh, there's an Ed Barrow autograph, and you're like, so? And a lot of people don't even know who these guys are. They're in the Hall of Fame, and they had tremendous impact on the game beyond just writing checks or leading teams. So there you go. There's Ed Barrow. All right, so the next letter here is a letter signed by George Weiss, who is a Hall of Fame executive, inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1971. This is also, ironically, written to Joe Devine, the same guy who the last letter was written to from Ed Barrow. And so really cool. He was part of, this is on Newark International Baseball Club. I think that was an affiliate of the Yankees in November 6, 1934. And talking about different players and stuff, and mentioning Colonel Rupert, who was the owner of the Yankees. Beautiful signature down here. So for George Weiss, he was involved with the Yankees from 1932 all the way to 1960. He then took over as president and general manager of the New York Mets from 61 to 66 when they first started. The Mets' first season was 1962, so he kind of got them off and started. His tenure with the Yankees saw lots of amazing things. You can obviously, from Ruth to Gehrig to DiMaggio to Mantle, all the way through all of that, Berra, everything, he was a part of that. And he was part of their farm system, developing their farm system under the tutelage of Ed Barrow. So they were, Ed Barrow was kind of his mentor. But once he became general manager, basically in 48, the Yankees finished third, and so he fired Bucky Harris, who is a Hall of Fame manager, and brought in Casey Stengel, who before Stengel came to the Yankees hadn't done diddly as a manager. And obviously George Weiss saw something in him and thought he could be a great manager, and he certainly was. He was 58 at the time, Stengel was, and brought him in and won 10 AL pennants and 7 World Series. So I think that worked out for him. But there you go. There's the letter from George Weiss. All right, so next up is a letter signed by Bill Veeck, who was the owner at this time of the Chicago White Sox. This letter was written in September 1978. I love the old school Chicago White Sox logo, letterhead up here. It's basically telling a guy that they don't have any jobs for him. The silhouette you're seeing behind there is the JSA certification, because there's a JSA stamp on this one. So a little bit about Bill Veeck. He was a fascinating character, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1991. He owned the Brewers, the Indians, the St. Louis Browns, and the Chicago White Sox at various points of his life. And a couple of notable stories that are fascinating to me. When he was a kid, his dad worked for the Cubs, and when he graduated college, he started working for the Cubs. His father had passed away, but he worked for the Cubs. And in 1937, it was Bill Veeck's idea to put ivy on the walls of Wrigley Field. How cool is that? Another great story about Bill Veeck. He did so many outlandish things in baseball, promotion-wise and different things, but he was also the first owner to integrate the American League. He was the owner of the Indians in 1947 when they brought in Larry Doby. And what happened was Lou Bedrew, who was the manager of the Indians at the time, took Doby around to introduce him to the other players. And he would say, all right, here is so-and-so, and Larry Doby would stick out his hand, and if the player would shake his hand, great. There were 3 players that decided not to shake Larry Doby's hand, and Bill Veeck saw to it as soon as possible to get rid of those players because he wasn't going to have any of it. And so I think that's very bold of him. Very cool. And then he ended up signing Satchel Paige for the Indians and had him pitch for the Indians for several years. And they won a World Series, go figure. So just a great letter signed by Hall of Fame executive owner Bill Veeck. So next up, we have something that I think is just absolutely incredible. As long as I've been in this collecting game, even I see pieces sometimes and I'm thinking, how the heck is this out to where somebody like myself can own it? It is a piece of history and it is so cool. The person that this is about and the person whose signature this is, let me see if I can move some stuff. His name is right there, Bowie Kuhn. Let me see if I can get my hand in here. Right there, Bowie Kuhn. He was commissioner of baseball from '69 to 1984 and inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2008. And let me show you what this is. So here's the letter. This is the envelope that it was in. From the Franklin and Marshall College U.S. Navy V-12 unit, written to Mr. and Mrs. Lewis Kuhn. So Bowie Kuhn wrote a letter to his mom and dad on May 7th, 1945. And over here is the letter itself. I'll pull it over here. Try to move that so the glare is not so bad, but we still need light, so there's got to be a balance there. So you can see up here, May 7th, 1945. Dear Mom and Dad. And man, so here we go. This letter, he's talking about how he has a stomach ache and, you know, what he's going to be doing. Then it gets really cool down here. This part of the letter says, I'm not sure whether today or tomorrow is VE Day. Let me move it. There you go. VE Day. Everybody is screaming already, but let me turn the letter over quickly. But they say it's tomorrow now. I don't see any particular reason for celebrating anything as long as the Japs are still in the Pacific. And so that he keeps going on and on. But VE Day was Victory Europe for World War II, and he's talking about this. It happened to be the next day, May 8th was declared VE Day, Victory Europe Day. He's at a Navy, he's learning how to fly airplanes for the Navy to go into World War II. Just an amazing letter. He just goes on to talk about some other things, and at the bottom he signs, all my love, Boots, which was Bowie Kuhn's, obviously, his nickname. So not only is it signed by him, the whole letter's written by him. At a time in his life, he was 19 years old when he wrote this letter. Just unbelievable that this is even out there for someone like me to own. And I'm so proud to own it. What a great piece of history this is. I mean, it even came with the envelope and everything. Just unbelievable. There's the Bowie Kuhn letter. All right, so next up we have this great letter from Hall of Famer Joe Cronin. Joe Cronin was elected to the Hall of Fame in 1956 after an unbelievable 20-year career. He was elected as a player. He also served 13 of those seasons as player manager for the Red Sox. So he was highly involved with the Red Sox. They've retired his number. He's in the Red Sox Hall of Fame, etc. But this letter was written during his 14-year tenure as president of the American League. I love the letterhead here from March 24th, 1971, American League of Professional Baseball Clubs. This letter was written to Charlie Finley, who was the president of the Oakland A's. What's great about it and what you need to know as you read this letter is what would happen is player contracts would be sent into the league. They would be looked at and then signed by the president of the league. In this case, one of the contracts that was signed was Bert Campaneris. You see that first one, which is very cool. He's a great player for the A's for a long time. So great letter here. Cronin was a 7-time All-Star, amazing ball player, and contributed a lot to baseball as an executive. So there's Joe Cronin. All right, next up we have a letter from Will Harridge. Will Harridge was the president of the American League from 1931 until 1959. He actually has several baseball cards in sets when they honored the presidents He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1972, literally the year after he died, which is kind of sad. This letter is on American League official letterhead, written May 28, 1945. One special thing about this letter, which is, I think, really neat, is it's written to a gentleman named Zach Zeller, who lives in Fort Worth, Texas, which is where I am, and this address is literally just a few miles away from me, so that's kind of cool. The letter itself is just talking about players that are being voluntarily retired, but I love the last paragraph, which says, "Hope you're enjoying your stay in the South. The weather here is very uncertain, and as a consequence, baseball is suffering." Well, no doubt. He's in Chicago, where the weather can be anything but nice. Mr. Zeller lives in Fort Worth, Texas, where we know the weather's always great. No, just kidding. It can be hot here. But just very neat letter from Hall of Famer, American League President Will Harridge. All right, next letter here is from Warren Giles, written February 15th, 1978. Ironically, just about a year before Warren Giles died. So he was 81 years old when he wrote this letter. And he wrote it to a guy named Bert Penn. It's on National League letterhead. And he's, at that point, the President Emeritus. So Giles served as president of the National League from 1951 to 1979. He was elected to the Hall of Fame by the Veterans Committee in 1979. Ironically, just months literally before he passed away, or after he passed away, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. So really sad there, but this letter is great. Just talking about how much this guy has interest in baseball. He's like, I've been in baseball more than 50 years, even though I retired in 1969, like I said. Still active in many areas. He goes down to Reds spring training every year, and he spends a month down there, which is really cool. He's talking about how he hopes they're going to be a great team. And this is 78, so the Reds were really good. You know, they had been the Big Red Machine and all the things that happened, and hoping that the Phillies are good too. And really, really, really cool little letter here. Giles was, you know, National League president at a time when a lot changed for the National League. You had expansion to the West Coast by the Dodgers and the Giants moving west. You saw expansion in 62 and 69. You just got to be an integral part of a very critical time in National League history. This is just a great letter, again, signed by Hall of Famer Warren Giles. All right, this last letter I'm going to show off might be my favorite, probably because of all the people you've already seen. This is the only Hall of Famer autograph that I didn't have yet. And so this was really why I went after this lot, was because I wanted this auto. And it's of Kennesaw Mountain Landis. And this was written on May 2nd, 1906. So this letter is 103 years old, and I swear it looks like he wrote it yesterday. The paper is pristine. I mean, it's unbelievable. And a lot of you that may not know Kennesaw Mountain Landis' story, he was the first commissioner of baseball from 1920 all the way to 1944. And he was inducted in the Hall of Fame in 1944. He was the first, you know, non-player kind of executive to be elected into the Hall of Fame. After the Black Sox scandal in 1919, baseball decided, you know, we need somebody to come in and clean up the game and oversee everything and kind of be above and beyond the owners. And they created this title called the Commissioner of Baseball, and it became Kennesaw Mountain Landis. He was a judge prior to that. In this case, you can see up here, the letterhead is from the Northern District of Illinois for the United States District Court in Chicago. And it talks about, the letter itself is a relatively benign note to saying, I'm not going to hold your son longer, or your nephew, any longer than I have to, kind of thing. And he signed it there beautifully, just K.M. Landis. So again, Landis had a tremendous impact on baseball. He was kind of the emperor of baseball during his tenure. You know, the buck stopped with him. He was known as a just incredibly hard man, but really good for baseball. Really oversaw so many things from the 20s, from 1920 to 44. Ruth's career and Gehrig, and just so many different things that he got to see and be a part of. So, I mean, he literally held the position till he died in 1978. Or 1944, at the age of 78. Sorry about that. But there you go. Kennesaw Mountain Landis, Hall of Fame autograph number 239 in my collection, and I couldn't be more proud to have it. This is just an awesome piece, and I hope you've enjoyed this whole series showing you these letters that I got. I'm thrilled to death to have them, and I hope you learned something. All right, guys, keep collecting.